All right,
show,
give me one second. Clear my
I-
door's shut here.
Oh no, far too late.
There we go.
I can't.
So,
Go ahead, Joe.
how's my lower
live.
third look?
Oh, we're live. Okay.
Looks great. Does it say
Looks good.
Emmy?
All right.
Yes.
Welcome everybody to episode 55 of the F Stops here. We have some very awesome guests on the show today.
We'll talk about
both Jason Allen and Josh Davisberg, and Zach rejoins us after going to the beach or somewhere. I don't know.
Myrtle Beach.
Anyway, and I'm back in my, which is totally sarcasm if you can't pick that up already. So anyway, so we're going to go ahead and kick it off, and I'm not going to start because I don't want everybody else to wait 15 seconds to hear what I have to actually say. So let's start off with Jason. What have you been up to? I think you have some pretty cool news to share with us.
It's so cool he forgot what it was, and I also think he froze. Josh, why don't you start? What have you been up to? What have you been shooting? What have you been doing? What have you been?
Oh man, I've been doing a bunch of stuff. I shooting a friend's wedding last weekend, so putting together the video for that. I also just recently shot this big 24-hour charity event in our county, editing the video for that. And I recently won a Telly Award, which is kind of the Emmys for commercials and PR video. So I won two. One for a video, kind of a documentary I did, mini doc, and one for a charity that rebuilds cars and sells them to families in need. So it's been pretty busy. Oh, and also I teach at University of Maryland, so I'm actually teaching a course called Slice, where the first week is audio, radio reporting, second week, still pictures, and then the last 4 weeks we work on video. So students who have no video, no audio, no still photography experience, and they're pretty much teaching them from scratch.
And does Slice stand for anything?
Nope, it's just a slice of each one. So they're not getting like the full thing. They're just learning little bits and pieces.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is there good feedback from that? You feel like it's really? Is this the first time the class has been taught, or?
No, but it's the first time I'm teaching the class. Pretty good feedback. You know, they're all master students, so they all want to be there. They all are like really into it. It's all very. It's like their first journalism class, so you know, some of them are just learning about ethics and that kind of stuff, but it's a lot of fun. Good students, good time.
So you're saying there are ethics in journalism?
At least we teach them. I'm not saying there are,
boy.
but we teach them.
Well, that's exciting stuff. Look, I had a brief stint with journalism, so I can make that joke.
Mm-hmm. You were a newspaper photographer, right?
I did. Maybe you're familiar with Patch.com.
Oh yeah.
So I actually did a lot of their back when they actually had the budget to hire photographers. I did a lot of their coverage for events and local high school sports and stuff. So, and then you know, the economy caught up with them, and they first eliminated their media people, and then they immediately went after all their freelance writers, and then they cleaned house of half of the actual patches themselves, and now they're pretty much an advertising and news aggregate site.
I think we could probably talk for a whole podcast what Patch did wrong. But,
yeah, I mean, and I mean, so I was never I didn't go to school for journalism. I just happened to pick up a camera and be in the right place at the right time. But I did go to school for business. And it was set up absolutely to go wrong from the get-go.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. So, well, that's cool. And congratulations on your awards.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's exciting stuff. You
Yes,
you do
congrats.
quite a bit of stuff. Jason,
Thanks.
do we still have you?
So I think I'm back. Can you guys hear me now?
Kinda.
2, 3. Hey, hey. All right. So, how you guys doing?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
Good.
Great. What have you been
All
up
right.
to?
So, well, what I've been up to recently, so I just moved up to New York City from the Washington, D.C. area, and I've been freelancing for the past 6, 7 weeks. I just started a job with Variety Entertainment Magazine doing video production for their online content, and I'm in charge of their content for the East Coast.
So no big deal, really, right?
Well, though, there was actually one big deal thing recently. So the last time I was on the show, about a year ago, we were talking about a project that was in progress at the time. I was working with my boss at the time on a documentary about immigration reform, and that has since aired on TV, and we put it in for a couple of awards. We just found out literally a week ago that we nailed 2 Emmys for it for cultural documentary in the National Capital chapter of the Emmys. So that was a red letter day for me. That was the first time I've gotten an Emmy for a project I've worked on for as many years as I have with that one. So that was a good day.
I love that you say that so nonchalantly. That's the first time I've ever gotten an Emmy for a project
Well,
I was
I
working.
I plan on getting some Golden Globes and Oscars to go with it down the road, but. No, I'm really stoked. Actually, the very first person I called was my Uncle Paul, who, well, he he got his Emmy Award from the '96 Olympics. He was working with NBC Sports at the time, so I called him up and I just had to say, "Hey, Uncle Paul, you're not the only Alan with an Emmy." So that was an awesome moment.
That's a heck of a family joke to have. Oh, you've
Yeah,
only got one
well,
Emmy?
we're working on it.
Next up,
Hopefully,
right?
hopefully we'll get that documentary seen. Yeah, hopefully we'll get that documentary seen by a wider audience in the near future. We're in distribution talks, and we're about to do a screening tour of I think 18 or 24 cities. We're still working out the details on that. But if you're in New York City on July 18th, NYU is hosting a screening of Dream: An Immigration Story. Or excuse me, the revised title is now Dream: An American Story. You can check that out at immigrationmovie.com for tickets.
Now, you did mention that the title changed. Was there a reason for that?
Just tested better, and it was more on point with the story. We didn't want it to be just an immigration story because so many of the film's participants came here as kids. They don't remember immigrating because they were so young. So really, they were raised as Americans, and they're for all intents and purposes Americans, except for but a piece of paper. So it's an American story.
That's pretty cool. Have you been up to anything else?
Well, I've recently gotten back to film photography. I found a streaming deal on an old Nikon Nicromat, which I have right here with me. And this is the same model camera that I learned photography on about 20 years ago. And I've been looking for a good condition one of these for a long while now. And I picked this up for $25 with a 24mm f2.8 prime just at this yard sale a few weeks ago in Brooklyn, and I couldn't be happier. The shutter fires just like my dad's old mint condition one. This one's a little rough around the edges. It's not winning any beauty contests, but it works like a charm, and you can drive nails with it. So I've shot about 4 rolls of film so far, including taking a bunch of street candids around Times Square the other night after work, and it shoots like a dream. Absolutely digging it.
You must have just a plethora of stuff to shoot while you're up there, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, there's no shortage of stuff to shoot in New York City. I mean, really, if you're ever at a loss for portrait subjects, just ride the subway at 2 in the morning. You'll see some weird stuff.
I feel like that could be for any kind of content production. Oh, you're a fiction writer? Just ride the subway at 2 o'clock in the morning. You'll find something good.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the people I've
When
met
you murdered,
while
ride
just
their
doing
subway
street
too in the morning.
candids on the subway have ranged from completely creepy and weird. Uh, Subway's not so bad. I mean, there's a cop in every car,
Oh, and every what?
get jumped, mugged, or anything. But this guy I sat down next to the other day, he was talking like a crazy person. You just kind of get used to that in New York City. And, after a couple of stops, I noticed him, he just completely stopped with the crazy talk and was smiling. And so I turned to him, I kind of smiled back, gave him the hey, how's it going head nod. And he's like, hey, I'm just a performance artist, right? I was practicing for a role where I play a mental patient. And do you think I was convincing? I said, well, you had me convinced for about 4 stops worth. So you meet some interesting portrait subjects in New York.
I bet. Have you run into the Humans of New York guy yet?
No, but I've been confused for him.
Right?
Yeah, Brandon from
Brandon.
Humans of New York. I've actually camped out at Grand Central Station waiting for him. As I understand it, he shoots most of his content for the week in 1 or 2 days, and then just puts it all out there. But what's interesting, now coming to New York City and becoming a local, like I live in Brooklyn, but I work in Manhattan, and I'm out in the city a lot on the weekends. A lot of the personalities and the people that he shoots that aren't tourists from other countries, like the German couple featured the other day, some of the New York regulars are, if you just walk around the city, you'll start recognizing these people. You'll start seeing them, and it makes Manhattan feel really like a small town. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the other day, the gentleman, kind of heavy set, looked like George R.R. Martin, and was playing a flute sitting on a full chair outside of a restaurant. He's right over on McDougal Street, not far from where I grab drinks with my friends after work on Fridays. So it's interesting when you become a New Yorker, you start seeing the regular odd people here featured on Humans in New York.
I also feel like that's probably the only place that you could get away with saying, do you remember seeing the heavyset guy that looks like George R.R. Martin playing the flute?
Yeah. I mean, really, there's no place like this in the world. I was asked the other day by my parents, how are you liking New York City? They spent 30 years here each. And I said, it's a dream. I pinch myself and wake up from like a really weird dream. But yeah, it's New York City. It just has a mind of its own. The city's a living thing.
Well, that's exciting stuff. I'd love to say this is actually probably a good week for this. I haven't been up to anything, which is good because I don't think I could compete with 2 award-winning content producers. So I'm just doing wedding photos right now. I am shooting a wedding next Wednesday. That's really odd. I've never been to a wedding on a Wednesday. So there's that. Yeah. Wednesday wedding. It's like 4 hours long.
Although I've shot maybe 2 weddings total, and you work much harder shooting weddings than I do on most of my normal shoots. So
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Huh.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll second what he says. Their weddings are hard. Weddings are the hardest you will work as a photographer.
It's definitely a lot of work. It's even more work when you've got a 5-month pregnant wife with you. But she's a trooper and really hangs in there. She is my second shooter. Yes, I'm losing her at the end of or at the beginning of the fall. So that's such a shame.
But then you're gaining a 3rd shooter coming
Right?
soon. Gotta get that kid started young.
Oh, I don't have my keys on me. I've got a tiny little camera on my keychain that I'm keeping for the baby when he gets here. Got to start him young. I figure I could probably produce, the next great photographer if I just get a camera in his hands the minute he's born. Like, literally the minute he's born. It is, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but so you guys are both primarily video, right?
Yeah. And I do mostly journalism too. So,
Right.
It's more documentary style than anything.
And now, Jason, do a fair share of what is your primary focus?
So right now, with the new job, I do a lot of celebrity news and entertainment news segments for all of the different variety entertainment magazine brands. That includes Yahoo Entertainment TV, ENTV. We do TV spots for Ion on television, for Warner Brothers, for first run screenings. We do box office numbers and business spots on all the big moves in Hollywood. So it's a variety of entertainment content. This is very new to me. My background, as you guys know, is mostly with news journalism as well, and government video production before that. So this is like putting on a pair of new shoes. I'm still breaking it in a little bit.
Right. So I mean, I've definitely I've shot weddings where there's been videographers. I actually almost got into a fight with one at the last wedding we were at, so that was pretty fun.
Did you start blocking your shot?
He was actually right in the middle of right in the middle of the cake cut. He stepped right in front of me, and then he elbowed my wife. So I almost, but I had to be professional, and that's. Obviously, I'm fairly certain he was a family friend who they got to do the work for free. Obviously, you guys are much more professional, and it's a mutual respect thing. I'm not going to get in front of his camera when he's trying to film something. Just like I would hope he or she wouldn't do the same to me. So, but I think we both work equally hard. There's no reason to say one works harder than the other.
Yeah, it's kind of an unwritten rule when you're out shooting that you try and stay out of each other's shots. You can push people around in the gaggle, but once they're set up, you stay out of their shots.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I will push wedding guests out of the way in a heartbeat.
They don't matter.
Especially, so it's funny because it's funny that we're having this conversation because on the faux blog the faux blogger this week there was a really good article about Uncle Bob's. And I'm sure you two are familiar with that term, and Joe as well, if we want to
Uncle
wait
Bob's
20 seconds.
are the absolute worst.
Right? So, one of the things that I've really gotten pretty good at is picking them out before the wedding even starts and having chats with them. It's absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. So
one technique, sorry to just to interject real quick, one technique that I always found very useful, like I have 49 weddings under my belt, and the last 2 were favors to friends. Wedding number 47 was my last one that I intend to shoot professionally till the next time I'm broke and need money. I mean, they're brutal, right? So I had this technique, and this was taught to me very early on by my friend AJ, who's an excellent wedding photographer in the DC area. He basically calls it organizing your paparazzi press corps. You leave your shots set up, but you tell everyone, hey, I get first dibs. Then you guys can all jump in and swarm the stand-up shots. And for the cake cutting shots, you just explain to them, hey, does the bride want your shot, or do they want the shot they're paying me X thousands of dollars to get?
Yeah, I've actually I started interjecting into when I have my client meetings and tell them, here's the deal, explain to your guests that I'm there for a reason, otherwise a quarter of the photos that you get delivered will be photos of people with cell phones and photos of people with cameras directly looking at me. Not on purpose, although I do occasionally like to What's that? Mm-hmm.
The I guess clause where it's responsible for under delivering.
So I do have a exclusive photographer clause in my contract, but it's not up to me to dictate whether or not a bride and groom ask their guests not to take pictures. I do encourage them to at least go unplugged during the ceremony, but that's the hardest thing in the world to do, is to ask people in an age of social media, where everybody wants to capture the moment and deliver it immediately. It's impossible to get that. There's definitely ways that they can go about informing their guests. At the last wedding that we shot just a couple weeks ago, the officiant actually said before the ceremony even started, the bride and groom have requested that you keep any photos you might take off of Facebook until after the reception, but would encourage you to not even bother to take photos, which was great. Now, the minute the bride and groom got down the aisle together, it was cell phone camera heaven or hell. So there really wasn't a ton of deterrent for that, but it's nice that at least they're looking out for us a little bit. Oh boy.
Sorry about that.
Oh boy. So it's tough because everybody wants to capture those memories. I think the biggest frustration is when, at least having been a guest and having gotten married, is when the people don't even bother putting the pictures up. It's like, why? You're not going to go back and look at that crap. So, it is what it is. But it's nice because I think we're kind of at a turning point, maybe a little bit, where where guests where brides and grooms are starting to realize that people are enjoying the weddings less because they're staring at them through a cell phone screen. So, kind of encouraging their guests, at least during the ceremony, just shut your phone off. It's not that tough. Step away. There'll be plenty of opportunity to take pictures. And you're right, Jason. It is a good way. I actually do this during the formal shots in the church right after the ceremony. I inform every aunt and uncle that just has to get one more picture, that I'm getting everything set up for a reason, and that once I do that, they'll get the chance to actually take the picture. I'll give them a couple seconds while I'm setting everything else back up, and that'll be it. So, yeah. Joe, would you like to tell us what you've been doing in a couple seconds?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing related to photography for the last week or so.
You owe us some work.
Great. No, I probably do owe you guys things. Like watching my TV get fried when the cable guy tried to install it.
A lot of film that was developed.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of film that needs to be developed. I also have a lot of credit card bills I need to pay off first. So it'll happen. It'll be like a time capsule. Jason, actually, I have an idea for you shooting film. And I came across this by accident, actually. Shoot a couple rolls, put them in your fridge for 8 months, then go develop them. Or even a year. It becomes like a very weird time capsule all of a sudden.
That's an awesome idea. Actually, the film stock that I have right now, and the impetus for why I went and got my Nicormat just the other day, basically, I have about, I think, another 19 or 20 rolls of some Fuji Portra and some other professional films. They're expired, but I've been lugging them around move after move, and I never shot them. And my roommates here in Brooklyn are complaining that they're taking up too much freezer space. So I'm burning through the film to just get rid of it while it's still able to be developed.
Nice.
So I'm working on it, but once I get down to the last couple of rolls, I think I'm going to try that. I'm just going to do a random photo outing, go to like a farmer's market here, and see what I can come up with. Put it away, for a couple of months, and develop it maybe end of summer, early fall. That's a fun idea. I like that.
The other idea that I've been trying to work out with one show, but Zach and I did a podcast, Patrick Onofre, is to actually shoot a roll and send it off to somebody else to double expose it and then develop it and share the photos. So that's something that I've actually.
That would be pretty interesting. I'd be curious to see how those come out.
So some of my students have never shot on film.
Especially because it's two different areas.
That's not really surprising.
Yeah,
wow.
But it's crazy to think about that. It's kind of like when I started video editing. I learned on a linear tape-to-tape system,
right.
And you just kind of you learn so much more when you have to deal with all the crap that comes with that old editing system.
How precise
There was actually
was your system, Josh? When you were doing tape to tape, like was it down to 3 frames accuracy, 4 frames?
If we were lucky, it was 3 frames. It slipped all the time.
Yeah, my boss at my last job, the director of the documentary project I was on, Aldo, he was he would always tell these stories about editing from half-inch tape to tape systems, and how he prided himself on being like Mr. Fast Fingers with being able to punch in exactly on the moment he wanted to cut at like 3 frames of accuracy, but that was still hot business back then.
I mean, just learning how to crossfade the natural sound on a linear system, you appreciate nonlinear so much more.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I can only imagine. I've never had to cut linear myself. I've seen it done, and it still amazes me that people don't go insane or didn't go insane back in the day doing it. But it really does make you appreciate tools like Avid and Adobe Premiere and hell, even Sony Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you edit on?
Oh, okay.
So.
Oh boy.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Real quick to answer your question, so my background, I started out editing on Premiere and Final Cut back in Premiere 1.5 and Final Cut version 6, or version 5 I think it was back then. So, around 2004, 2005-ish or so. And since then, I've become mostly an Adobe guy, and I've added Avid to my portfolio. We cut the feature on Avid Media Composer. We started on Media Composer 2.5, and when we put the project through sweetening and color and secondary color, I think we were on Media Composer 6.5. So, we went through a few generations there on just that project. For me personally, I do a lot of work with After Effects, so I love the Adobe Suite, especially Creative Cloud with all the new features they keep rolling out week after week, especially on the video end of things, where for the fast turnaround projects at work, especially with Variety's ENTV brand, we do very fast turnaround edits where we don't even render out our effects. We nest our After Effects graphics sequences on our timeline. So if you need to adjust keyframe, you don't have to go back to After Effects, render that back out, take up a huge amount of disk space, kill a whole bunch of time while your system can do nothing. You can just adjust the keyframe, and when you render out your final timeline, it renders then. So Adobe's become my preferred platform. How about you? What are you using for your work?
So I never touched Avid. I started out, I learned tape to tape, and then I really didn't shoot or edit until about 4 years ago, and I picked up Final Cut Express, just bought it and started editing with that, and then moved on to Final Cut 7, and right now I'm teaching Premiere, and at home I use both Premiere and Final Cut 10.
Great.
I know people bash 10, but I love it.
I was just going to ask, wasn't there a whole bunch of controversy? Maybe not controversy, but a whole lot of complaining when that came out.
Yeah, so everybody was really excited about it coming out, and then the second it came out, everybody just freaked out because it didn't have what they needed. But since then, they've updated it, and they've updated it, and they've updated it, and it's pretty much fit back to a professional editing system. And for me, I just love it's fast. It's so easy to organize your footage with it, and it's easy. It's really intuitive.
That was an interesting period of time because that was an interesting period of time because Final Cut 10 came out, and that was right around the time that you started to see a little bit of fall off on Aperture, which was Apple's photo editing software, and I haven't touched Aperture in a couple years. I know Joe was using it for a little while until some incredibly generous people bought him Lightroom. You're welcome. But that was kind of people. I remember a lot of people. I remember a lot of people screaming that it was Apple abandoning the professionals,
Right.
because Aperture really kind of they didn't neuter that as much as I think they originally did Final Cut Pro, but yeah, I remember.
Yeah, the original 10 release, it was pretty much a beta. It wasn't a complete version. You know, within a few months they started releasing updates and it's getting better and better and better. And then when they released the multicam, Jason, I don't know if you played around with the multicam in Final Cut. It is
Yeah,
amazing.
actually, that was the final. The reason I jumped ship from Final Cut when we went to 10, like we were editing at Minded Media as mostly a Final Cut 7 house. We were doing Final Cut Studio 3, which was Final Cut 7 motion compressor. Still used compressor for a very long time for delivery. But when they removed multicam in the jump from Final Cut 7 to Final Cut 10, that did it for us. We immediately went to Avid and said, okay, well, for all of our event work, when we have 4 camera, 5 camera, 9 camera shoots for some of our corporate events, it was just making our workflow miserable. So we said, all right, time to buckle down, spend $3,000 a seat, and buy Avid. And then they brought it back. The new multicam is exactly what should have been released with it. They would not have lost their market share if they'd done it that way.
Right.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. It was a beta release. It was a candidate release. It shouldn't have been public until about 2 years later.
And you really have to wonder, and Jason, you mentioned with Adobe and the Creative Cloud, they just kind of held their major event and made a bunch of new announcements, which I know made me really happy because I've used the $10 a month photographer version, which is just Lightroom and Photoshop, and a lot of people were worried that it was only going to last for so long, and then they made the price permanent, and it's been great because even the micro changes that they make, it's always fun to kind of log in and see what updates have been released, what they've changed, what bugs got fixed, and really bad bug in where if you clicked on one of the sliders instead of actually clicking on the slider itself, if you clicked on the slider bar, it wouldn't actually make any changes, and so I ended up with about 500 photos of really, really poorly vignetted people that until I had to go back and actually make the changes. So that was a nice, really, really nice couple of changes that they made to the software. Sure, it kind of sucks that we're basically leasing it now, but what are you going to do?
My school of thought with Creative Cloud.
Joe, any thoughts?
Oh, sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Go for it.
He's not going to chime in anyways.
Go for it.
What I was going to say with Adobe and the Creative Cloud, my only gripe with it was the security issue with my financials, because I was part of the lucky group of people whose credit card numbers were actually compromised during that mess. That said, looking at it from a professional standpoint, most of the shops I've worked at, and just personally, buying version after version after version to have the current feature set to do what I need to do professionally, and to keep up with camera formats as they evolve, especially tapeless video formats. I have no problem leasing the software from Adobe because it works out for me to be substantially cheaper than buying the new version every year, every 2 years. With Avid, for example.
I hate that I own these. There's no reason.
Well, for me, with Avid, that was an especially expensive platform to invest in when I first got on board with it on version 2.5. It was, I think, $3,700 a seat. And then, each iteration after that really had the features you wanted, and so you'd pay for it. And, it was paying for itself. After, you do a couple jobs with it and people know, hey, you're an Avid editor, they'll go to you with half-finished projects that another freelancer was working on, and you have that niche platform. But spending $2,000-$3,000 every couple of years. I much prefer paying, what is it, 80 or 120 a month for the Creative Cloud, everything you need for video production and photography setup, and it gets continually updated, and it softens the blow spreading it out, and I can turn it off if I want to go on vacation for 2 months, which, if you're a freelancer, you can sometimes do things like that.
It definitely
save you a couple bucks here and there.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier to jump right into, because you don't feel like you're shelling out all that money right at the beginning.
Right.
On the other hand, if you're not updating, if you're not the type of person that bought the whole suite every 2 years or whatever, then it gets really expensive.
Sure.
Right, and that's very true. I can understand that argument, because if you're not working with more and more current video cameras, if you own your own gear and you're not upgrading but every 5 years, you don't have to adjust to the new tapeless format, the new RAW codecs and all of that. A lot of the work that I was seeing just in the last couple of weeks since I moved up here to New York, people were coming at me with all kinds of crazy formats for some projects, combinations of cell phone video and raw footage from a Blackmagic Cinema camera in the same project. So, it was part of why I invested in Creative Cloud instead of buying whatever the latest Avid was. I forget what the current version is, but just to keep up with all the different formats, because there's so many of them now, especially with everybody moving towards shooting raw for video on the intermediate level.
I was actually incredibly amazed to find out that Lightroom even supported a lens profile for GoPros.
Really?
Yeah. So it will actually take the it will actually take the wide angleness of a GoPro shot, because you can shoot raw in a GoPro, and correct the lens distortion, I forget when they added that. But yeah, you can correct GoPro lens distortion, as it looks like it got added in. I was trying to look it up, but yeah. So that's because one of the things that I've been really kind of doing is with it kind of getting a little bit of low as far as the photography business goes. Nobody really has babies around now. And the weddings seem to be really kind of clumped in the fall a lot more now. So I've just been having a lot of fun playing around and everything. And if you've seen previous shows or seen some of the crap that I've posted on Twitter and Facebook, I've been having a lot of fun throwing my GoPro as far as I could get it in the air. In fact, we took it to the beach here a couple weeks ago, and I got a chance to really play around with that. So I did stuff like this where I threw it up as far as I could, so I can actually take this image and with Lightroom just correct it, and it becomes a flat beach picture, which was really neat. But it was just kind of a way to keep things interesting and not make it as boring. So
out of all the new cameras and everything, GoPro has to be my favorite.
Yeah,
love that thing.
It presents. So do you guys use any GoPros in your video work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can take that camera and stick it anywhere. My favorite thing to do with it is to stick it in some place that's going to get covered up. So I shot that car video. I had the GoPro under the hood of the car, and the guy opened up the hood to start working on it. So it gave me this nice natural white from black into his face.
As the exposure changed when the light hit the
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean with the quality of them becoming so good, I mean you can pull 4K out of the latest ones, and I don't know if you're doing a lot of work with that high of a bit rate of video, but
I'm not yet. One of my buddies just bought the Panasonic GH4, and that thing is amazing. But he's come into this problem where he doesn't have a computer fast enough to edit it, and then his work computer isn't fast enough to edit it. So it's kind of
let's not forget that most of your monitors and display devices aren't really even going to give you
Right.
that kind of an image.
Although, like the one thing about 4K is with video, you can crop it and get that
That's true.
beautiful image, and you're
That's
not
true.
losing 1080.
So what
Yeah,
have you guys? Oh boy.
Features real quick about the 4K on the
Oh,
GH4. I actually played
But speaking of really bad video,
straight in from one camera on a set of sticks.
I think we missed.
Yeah, we only got about like the last 5 words of that.
Okay, sorry, my connection's jamming up a little.
Oh.
Here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We could. So yeah, well, we'll just skip that part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great to see where the technology is going, and Josh, how much of have you? I was just kind of looking through your stuff earlier. I noticed you do a lot of work with DSLRs, a lot of your video work with DSLRs. Is that kind of where? I mean, obviously you probably didn't get your start there, but do you find that that's kind of where the whole industry's going, especially for video?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you're talking to. You know, if you're talking about TV stations and like pure television journalism, the newsroom is not really moving towards DSLR at this point, even though, you know, I wish that it was, because it looks a lot better than a news style camera, an ENG style camera. But everywhere else is maybe not moving towards a DSLR, but at least a large sensor, large sensor camera, either like the C100, the C300, the Sony F55, F7, whatever. But large sensor is definitely the way that it's going. There's this really cool blog that I follow. It's newsshooter.com. It used to be DSLR newsshooter.com. And they just recently switched it because we're kind of moving beyond DSLRs into these hybrid, large sensor but video camera format. Because, when you've got this thing, really, they're built for still pixels. You don't have the audio capability. You can get a Rode VideoMic, which is phenomenal, but you don't have XLR inputs. You don't have professional audio inputs. And some of the other things aren't really set up for video. They're set up for still. Like the aperture goes in clicks instead of being a smooth motion. So I think everything is moving towards that direction. It's just maybe not DSLRs in general, but like a mirrorless hybrid, large sensor hybrid.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of it's interesting because with so many people getting access to these now, you're seeing so much more. I mean, high school kids can make music videos now, and with a Canon Rebel T4i, and they've got all this great wireless features and all this other stuff. It's fascinating.
And then make money off of YouTube.
Right. A lot more money than they should be making.
Right.
It's terrifying, and it really seems like, especially from an accessory standpoint. I mean, you showed your mic that was attached there, but even a lot of the rigs, like the I don't know what you guys call it because I don't do a whole lot of video, but anything kind of like the like a Steadicam rig, it seems like they're being really tailored towards getting them done nicely for DSLRs, getting them so that they'll fit that.
And they're dropping in price too. They're getting less and less expensive. And we talked about the GoPro. So one of my friends got this thing. It's called the Poise G2, It's basically it's a gimbal unit for the GoPro. It was like $200, and this thing looks like a Steadicam. You know, the video that it produces looks like a Steadicam, and it takes absolutely no learning how to use it. You just plug the GoPro in, and it steadies it. The thing is amazing.
I'm looking at it now that I have it on eBay for about $270, and that's you just use it.
Yeah, it's already balanced and everything, balanced for the GoPro.
That's wild. Because I know I've really started using my like I've got the everybody calls it the selfie stick. I've got one of those, and you know we kind of used that while we were at the beach to get some shots of just out as we were, you know, in the water and everything like that. And you're seeing a lot of people putting them on the really, really cheap quadcopters while they're still legal.
Right.
But it's really great. I mean, it's absolutely great to see, and it's wild because it seems like it's these companies coming out of nowhere to do a lot of this stuff.
Right, I mean, you have these video lenses that are coming from companies like SLR Magic, and I mean, I don't know if you've seen those, but it's incredible. They're not that expensive, and they just produce phenomenal pictures. Well, and you know, I've got a slider. I'm sure you guys have seen these things, but this is, you know, $400 with the video head, and it creates the cinematic look that you didn't have before.
And it's tiny. It's no longer something. I mean, you always excuse me. You always see when they do film, they always get the good panning shots. It's always like on a railroad tracks. Right. And you can kind of get the exact same look now from a couple pieces of PVC, or if you really want a professional quality, you spend a couple $100 and there you've got it.
And every day there's something new on Kickstarter that's
amazing
and that I have to have. You know.
Yeah, I actually I just funded. I'm a big fan of the guys at Peak Design. They did the capture clips, which are really nice if you use any kind of straps or anything like that. They're now jumping into the strap market as well. So I'm looking forward to getting that stuff. But it's really nice, and Kickstarter's dangerous, man. I mean, you can really, you could do some damage. Oh, even our own, where do I have it here? It's over there somewhere. Even our own Jamie McDonald attempted to kickstart his own project. Unfortunately, it didn't get funded, but he was still able to turn it around and you know, get that product made. And I bought one and was able to do some really cool stuff with it while we were at the beach. And then we accidentally lucked into a lightning storm, so that was kind of crazy. But.
Well, and then on top of that, with Kickstarter, you have people funding documentaries on there that never would have gotten made before. And then you've got Vimeo, where you can stream documentaries, and Netflix is buying documentaries. It's just amazing, you know, what you can do now.
It really is. And that's probably one of my favorite genres of movie, so I'm all for that. I say bring it on.
Absolutely. Me too.
So, yeah, it's good stuff. I was trying to think. The last documentary I watched was probably 12 O'Clock Boy. Probably not.
What's that about?
But yeah, the 12. Really?
We watched.
You haven't heard of
last.
You haven't heard of 12 O'Clock Boys?
No.
So it's actually it was they made it in 2013. It's about the dirt bike gangs in the city.
Really? In Baltimore?
Yeah, it's if you've ever had the pleasure of driving through the city and getting stopped by them, as I have, it's a really good watch because
absolutely,
it's terrifying to see the mentality that some of these people have, and the documentary was actually a really, really well put together, well directed, well produced documentary, so I guess
is that streaming on Netflix?
I don't know where you can stream it.
I'm not sure if it's on Netflix.
Let me check canistreamit.com.
I love that. You know they have an app. There's an iPhone app for Can I Stream It? Yeah.
I do. 12 O'Clock Boys. Good. It's a really good documentary. My wife and I sat down and watched it, and she usually falls asleep about 10 minutes into documentaries, and she stayed up for the whole thing. So that's gotta account for something.
Mm-hmm.
But they follow So you can rent it on iTunes, or it's rentable on iTunes for $4. You can rent it from Amazon for $4. You can rent it from YouTube for $7.
I'll have to check it out.
You can actually get it on Showtime if you have Comcast. I'm sorry, Xfinity.
Right.
So it is actually streaming. It looks like it's streaming through Showtime. But yeah, really, really good movie, or good documentary.
I'll check it out. We watched Waiting for Sugar Man last night. Have you seen that?
I have not. What is that about?
That is amazing too.
Film.
So that's about this. Yeah, really good. It's about this singer-songwriter in the 70s. Didn't make it in the U.S. Didn't sell any records. Got huge in South Africa, and had no idea. And I don't want to ruin too much of it, but that's what it's about.
So it's kind of like David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, kind of like David Hasselhoff.
Not Germany.
But not really. Yeah.
Right. I'll have to check that out. That's on Netflix as well?
That one, it's on Stars or Epix, one of the two. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we could probably sit here and talk about documentaries all night, but it is 9 o'clock, so we're probably going to go ahead and end now. Hopefully by next week, Joe will have his problem solved, and we can hopefully get Jamie back too. He had a quick thing he had to take care of tonight. But Jason and Josh, it was great having you guys on. We'd love to get you back on sometime.
This was awesome.
If you're ever available. And if you ever want to talk patch, Josh, just hit me up. I'd love to.
All right, sounds good.
So, Joe, Jason, and Josh, thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody for tuning in. And this has been episode 55 of the F Stops Here podcast. Oh, no, I don't want to leave.
Good night.
There we go.